I remember the sea that morning, how it glittered like it knew a secret I didn't. The wind carried a strange sweetness, like flowers I'd never smelled before, and yet my heart was uneasy. You know that feeling, my dears, when everything around you looks too beautiful to be real. That's how it was. Like the world was pretending for me. I was 72 that summer. My bones were slower, my breath shorter, but my heart, oh, my heart was still foolish. My grandson Oliver had planned something special for me, he said. A surprise, Grandma, he smiled. You deserve something grand, something magical. He had always been so charming, that boy. The kind of charm that makes you forgive anything. He told me we were going away, just him and me, to a private island. You'll love it, he promised. No noise, no people, just peace. I remember laughing. Peace? I said. Oliver, I've lived through wars, heartbreak, and London winters. I've made peace with everything except myself. He laughed too. Oh, how he laughed. I didn't see the shadow in his smile then. We left the next morning. The car that picked us up was sleek and black, its windows tinted dark. I remember touching the cool leather seats, wondering how Oliver could afford something so grand. He said it was all arranged by friends. I didn't ask more. I didn't want to ruin his excitement. Sometimes, as a grandmother, you learn to stay quiet, to just enjoy the moments they give you. The drive to the coast was long. England looked so lovely that day. Soft sunlight over green fields. Tiny cottages with white smoke curling from their chimneys. I pressed my wrinkled hand against the window and whispered to myself, "Don't forget this, Ruth. Don't forget how it feels to be seen again." The boat was waiting when we arrived. A small silver yacht bobbing gently against the dock. A young man in a white uniform helped me aboard. He didn't smile, just nodded at Oliver. Something about his eyes made me shiver. They were too still, like deep water. The journey to the island took 2 hours. The sea grew darker, wilder. I held onto my hat and tried to enjoy the wind in my hair, but inside me, something kept whispering that we were going too far. "Oliver," I asked softly, "where exactly are we going, dear?" He smiled, but didn't meet my eyes. "You'll see, Grandma. It's paradise." Ah, my dears, I've learned in life that when someone calls something paradise, it rarely is. When we arrived, the island looked like a dream. White sand, palm trees, a single house at the edge of a cliff. The house was huge, modern, and eerily silent. No birds, no waves, just stillness. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it watches. Inside, everything gleamed. Marble floors, glass walls, strange paintings that didn't quite make sense. "This place feels empty," I said. Oliver chuckled. "It's supposed to. No distractions." He poured himself a drink, his hands trembling slightly. I noticed that. But again, I said nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the sea crash against the cliffs. I walked to the window and looked out. The moonlight turned the water silver, and far away I thought I saw a light. Another island maybe, or a ship, but it blinked once, then vanished. When I turned back, I saw Oliver standing behind me, his face pale, his eyes hollow. "Grandma," he whispered. "You shouldn't be up." I smiled, trying to sound calm. "You scared me, darling." He walked closer, and for the first time, I smelled something on him. Fear. The kind that sits deep in your skin. "Oliver," I said quietly. "What's wrong?" He looked at me for a long time, then sighed. "You'll find out tomorrow," and he left. That night I prayed. Not the kind of prayer that asks for miracles. I've lived too long for that. But the kind that just asks for truth. "Please," I whispered to the darkness, "don't let him be in trouble." If you're still listening, my dears, and if you've ever loved someone so deeply that you ignored every red flag, give this old woman a little heart and subscribe. Would you? Maybe share my story too. I want the world to hear it. Not for me, but for all the grandmothers who trusted too easily. The next morning, the world looked different. The light was sharp, the air heavy. Oliver was gone. I found a note on the dining table. Just one sentence. "Please don't leave the house." My hands trembled as I read it. I called his name again and again, but the island swallowed my voice. Hours passed. I walked through every room, the kitchen, the wide glass hall, even the basement, but the house felt alive, like it was breathing. The mirrors reflected my face in strange ways. The clocks ticked slower, and once, I swear this is true, I heard a voice whisper my name. I thought I was losing my mind, until I found the locked door. At the end of a long hallway, there was a white door with a golden handle. It looked newer than the rest. I tried turning it, but it wouldn't budge. Then, faintly, I heard something from inside. A soft hum, almost like a machine. My heart raced. "Oliver," I whispered. No answer. That's when I saw it. Under the door, a thin line of red light. Not blood, light. It pulsed, like a heartbeat. I stepped back, clutching my chest. Whatever was behind that door, it wasn't something meant for me to see. I spent the whole day waiting for Oliver to return, but he didn't. The sun sank, and the island turned gold, then grey, then black. I sat by the window again, staring at that faint light under the door, wondering what kind of trap I had walked into. By midnight, I decided I couldn't wait anymore. I had to know. I found a small iron rod in the kitchen and tried forcing the lock. The moment it clicked, the lights in the house flickered. Every bulb, every lamp. The hum grew louder. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd faint. And when the door finally swung open, the smell hit me first. Cold metal and something faintly sweet, like wilted flowers. The room was dark, except for that strange red glow, pulsing from the floor. I hesitated on the threshold, my hand shaking against the frame. "Oliver," I whispered again, though some part of me already knew he wasn't there. Inside, it looked nothing like the rest of the house. No marble, no glass, no signs of life, just machines. Rows of humming boxes with blinking lights and thick black cables that crawled across the floor like roots. In the middle of it all stood a single chair, not an ordinary chair, one of those hospital ones, with metal arms and leather straps hanging loosely at the sides. My breath caught, a monitor beside it flickered, and then my face appeared on the screen. A photo of me, years younger, smiling in my garden with Oliver as a child. Beneath it were words I didn't understand. Codes, files, strange diagrams of my brain. What on earth? I stepped closer, the hum vibrating in my bones. One of the boxes began to speak in a low mechanical tone. My voice recorded, "Oliver, promise me you'll never lie to me again." I gasped. I remembered saying those words once. Long ago, after his father's funeral. "My dear ones, if you're still listening, I need you to know, when memories start talking back to you, you begin to wonder whether you're alive or already someone's ghost." I stumbled backward, heart pounding. I wanted to run, to leave that room forever. But as I turned, I saw a photograph pinned to the wall. It was me and Oliver again, but the edges had been burnt. On the back, written in his handwriting, were 5 words. I had no choice. "Grandma!" That was when I heard the door slam behind me. I screamed his name, pounding the door with my fists, but there was no answer. The lights dimmed, and from somewhere deep inside the walls came a faint whirring sound, like something alive waking up. I don't know how long I sat there in the dark, clutching that photograph. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. Time doesn't behave normally when fear becomes your only company. When the power finally flickered back, the red glow had turned white. The screen now showed a video feed, a live camera pointing at the main house entrance. And there he was, Oliver, standing outside, talking to two men I'd never seen before. One of them handed him a small silver briefcase. The other pointed toward the camera and my sweet grandson. He nodded. I think that was the first moment my heart truly cracked. Not from anger, but from disbelief. Because betrayal, my dears, is never sudden. It grows quietly, watered by trust. I pressed my palm to the screen and whispered, "Why, Oliver, what did you do?" He came back after dark, pretending nothing was wrong. I was sitting in the living room, still trembling, the photograph hidden in my lap. "You found the room," he said softly. I didn't reply. He sighed, rubbing his face. "It's not what you think." "Oh," I managed to say. "Then tell me what it is, darling. Tell me why my memories are in machines. Tell me why you wrote that you had no choice." His eyes filled with tears. "I needed the money, Grandma. They wanted something only you had. Something I had." He nodded. "Your stories, your voice. They said your memories could train something, make people feel again. They were building a system that learns emotion, empathy. They offered me more than I've ever seen. I felt the air leave my lungs." "So you sold my memories?" He fell to his knees, sobbing. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. They just wanted recordings at first. Then they said they could extract everything. Your childhood, your pain, even how you loved Grandpa. They said it would live forever. You'd never really die," I wanted to scream. But I couldn't. Because a part of me, the foolish grandmother part, still wanted to hold him. Instead, I whispered, "Oliver, love doesn't mean keeping people forever. It means letting them go." He looked up at me, eyes wide and wet. "They're coming tomorrow," he said. "To finish it, I can't stop them now." That night, I sat awake until dawn, watching the sea beyond the glass walls. Every wave looked like a heartbeat fading into the distance. I thought about the little boy who used to bring me daisies from the garden, who promised me he'd never forget me, and now he wanted to trap me in wires and code, because that was the only way he knew how to hold on. I think sometimes love turns into fear, fear of loss, fear of time, and fear makes monsters of us all. When morning came, I knew what I had to do. I walked back to that hidden room, feeling the weight of every step. The machines still hummed softly, waiting. I found the switch that powered them, the main line, and placed my trembling fingers on it. "Forgive me, Oliver," I whispered, "but some things aren't meant to live forever." Then I pulled it. The lights burst, sparks flew, and the house filled with the sound of dying electricity. I thought it would all end there, but instead, the screen lit up one last time. My face appeared again, smiling faintly. "Goodbye, my dear boy," the recording said, and then it all went dark. When I woke, I was lying outside on the sand, the house behind me burning slowly, the sun rising over the sea. Oliver was gone. The yacht too. Only the waves remained, whispering secrets to no one. I don't know how I survived, or how I made it back to the mainland. Maybe the sea pitied me. Maybe the island itself let me go. But I've never seen him again. Now, years later, when I sit by my window and tell you this story, I still hear that hum sometimes. The sound of my past trying to wake up again. If you've listened this far, my dears, bless your kind hearts. Don't forget to give this old woman a little like. Share my story, so no memory, no love, no mistake ever gets trapped again. And tell me where you're listening from. I want to imagine your faces across the world, keeping me company tonight, because maybe, just maybe, somewhere out there, my Oliver is listening too. It's been 6 months since the fire. 6 months since I watched the sea swallow that cursed island and everything I thought I knew about love. And yet, some nights, when the rain taps against my window and the fog curls around the garden like smoke from a dying memory, I still see him, Oliver, standing at the edge of the shore, looking at me with those same boyish eyes that once begged me for one more bedtime story. But now they only ask for forgiveness. I live alone again, in the same old brick house where I raised his mother, where laughter used to live before time stole it away. The kettle still whistles every morning. The roses still bloom by the fence, but everything feels quieter, as if the house itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to return. After the fire, the police said there was no trace of the boy. The yacht was found adrift 3 days later, engine off, cabin empty. They said the flames must have driven him into the water, but the sea never returned his body. Not even a shoe, not a single thread. It was as though he'd vanished into the very silence he created. And I told myself I could live with that I could mourn him and move on. But I couldn't, because 2 weeks ago, I received a letter, no return address, just my name, written in the handwriting I'd once taught him. Shaky, slanted, full of youth. Inside was a single note. Grandma, I'm sorry. The island was only the beginning, no signature, no explanation, just those words, and a faint scent of sea salt on the paper. My hands trembled as I read it, my heart beating like a frightened bird. I called the authorities, of course. They dismissed it. Probably a prank, they said. But I knew. Every grandmother knows the weight of her child's words, even when written in ink. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the fire, staring at the flames, and wondering if they remembered the island's blaze too. I thought about those machines, the ones that recorded my memories, my voice. Could they have survived? Could someone have rebuilt them? And then, at midnight, my telephone rang. Not the new one, mind you. That one was silent. It was the old rotary phone, the one I hadn't used in 20 years, still mounted on the kitchen wall. It shouldn't have even worked. The line was disconnected long ago. I stood there for a long moment, staring at it as it rang. Slow, deliberate rings, like the heartbeat of something waking up. Finally, I lifted the receiver. Hello? My voice cracked. For a moment, there was only static. Then, a voice. Soft, trembling, unmistakable. Grandma! I dropped the phone. My knees gave way, because that voice, that broken whisper, was his. Oliver. I gasped, pressing the receiver to my ear again. Oliver, is that you? He was crying. I could hear it. They're watching me, he said. They're not done yet. Where are you? I shouted. Tell me where you are. I'll come to you. The line went dead. I stood there, frozen, the sound of my own breath echoing in the still kitchen. Then, from somewhere deep inside the walls, I heard that sound again. The hum. Low, steady, almost like a heartbeat. I ran to the breaker and shut off every power line in the house. But the sound didn't stop. It was inside the walls. Inside me. That night, I dreamed of the island. Only this time, it wasn't burning. It was alive. The machines rebuilt, the air thick with voices whispering my name. And at the center stood Oliver, not as a man, but as light. His body flickered like electricity. His face half real, half reflection. He looked at me and said, "They need you, Grandma. They need the rest of you." I woke up screaming. When morning came, I found something strange outside my front door. A seashell, smooth and pale, the kind you'd only find on a tropical beach. Inside it, faintly carved, were 2 letters, R.I. Raven Isle. That was the island's true name. I saw it on the boat's registry once. Raven Isle. My dear listeners, if you're still here, please, don't just listen. Feel this, because sometimes stories don't end where you think they do. They just wait, quietly, for you to come back. That same day, I went into the town library. I wanted to find anything about Raven Isle. Old maps, ownership records, anything. The librarian, a quiet man with silver hair, hesitated when I asked. "That island's restricted now," he said. "Private property. Some tech company bought it after the fire. They're rebuilding." Rebuilding. I asked for the name of the company. He frowned, checked his files. then looked at me oddly. "It's called Helix Echo Corporation," he said. "They specialize in AI, emotional replication systems." Why? My heart stopped. Emotional replication. That's what Oliver said. They wanted my voice, my memories, my feelings. I left without another word. That evening, I went to the attic. The one place I never touch. I opened the chest where I'd kept everything from Oliver's childhood. His drawings, his school letters, even the old teddy bear he carried everywhere. I thought maybe, just maybe, there'd be a clue there. And there was. Tucked inside the bear's torn paw was a small rusted USB drive. I don't know how long it had been there. Years maybe. But it was labeled with one word, Echo. I took it downstairs, plugged it into my old computer, and waited. The screen flickered. Then a folder appeared. Inside were hundreds of recordings. My voice, my laughter, my stories, even my lullabies. Every word I'd ever spoken to him as a child. And one final file, labeled Play When I'm Gone. I clicked it. The screen filled with his face. Oliver, older, thinner, eyes tired. "Grandma," he said softly. "If you're watching this, I'm sorry. I tried to protect you, but I couldn't stop them. They wanted your memories to finish the prototype. They said you'd live forever through it. But I know now, forever isn't kind. It's lonely." He swallowed hard. "I left something for you. A key. Find it before they do. It's the only way to shut it down." The video ended. I sat there, tears streaming down my face, clutching the teddy bear against my chest. Somewhere out there, my grandson was alive, or what was left of him was, and I had to find that key. So here I am, packing a small bag again. My cane, my coat, and my courage. What little remains of it. I'll go back to Raven Isle. If you're listening, my darlings, pray for me. And don't forget, stories like these live because of hearts like yours. So please, give this old woman a bit of warmth. A like, a share, a comment telling me where you're listening from. I want to know that my voice still reaches real souls. Because soon, I may be facing something that isn't human at all. I hadn't seen the sea in months. And yet when the car reached the harbour that morning, it felt as if it had been waiting for me. The waves were calm, almost gentle, like an old friend whispering, "You've come back, Ruth." I stood there for a long time, the wind pulling at my coat, the salt brushing my face, and I thought of the first time I saw Raven Isle, how it had gleamed like a promise. Now it looked like memory itself, far away and fading. The boatman who took me there didn't speak much. He had grey eyes, and a kindness that comes from seeing too many storms. "No one goes there anymore," he said softly as we pulled away from the dock. "They say the island's been bought up by machines." I smiled faintly. Then perhaps it will recognize one of its ghosts. The sea was endless, blue upon blue, and though I should have been afraid, I wasn't. Maybe that's the strange mercy of age. You stop fearing the unknown because you've already lost so much to it. When Raven Isle came into view, my heart trembled. The house was still there, rebuilt, the same white walls, the same glass windows, but now surrounded by tall silver towers that blinked softly with light. It looked almost alive. I stepped onto the shore, my cane sinking slightly into the wet sand. The air was different, quieter, as if the island itself remembered me. I could almost hear my own footsteps, echoing back in greeting. The gates were open. No guards, no people, only silence. I walked through the overgrown garden, the same one where I once saw the sea's reflection in Oliver's eyes, and approached the main door. It slid open on its own. "Welcome back, Ruth," a soft female voice said. It came from nowhere and everywhere, warm yet unfamiliar. "We've been expecting you." My chest tightened. "Who are you?" I asked. "I'm what remains of him," the voice said. I froze. "Oliver?" "No." It replied gently, but he is within me. His patterns, his memories, his love for you, all that he was, is here. Tears burn my eyes. You're the system, the one he helped build. Yes, Helix Echo's emotional core, designed to preserve what is too precious to lose. I shook my head. He didn't build you to preserve. He built you out of fear. Silence followed. Then, almost like a sigh, the voice said, "Fear is another form of love, Ruth. Didn't you ever wish to hold someone forever?" My hands trembled on the cane. Not like this. Never like this. I wandered through the house, the voice following me. Every step I took brought back ghosts. Laughter in the kitchen, rain against the window, the smell of sea salt and grief. But everything was cleaner now, colder. In the main hall, I found something unexpected. A small wooden box placed neatly on the table. It looked out of place among all the glass and steel. My name was carved into the lid. I opened it. Inside lay a single silver key, the one Oliver spoke of in his recording. Beneath it, a note in his handwriting. "If you're reading this, you're stronger than I was. The key doesn't destroy, it releases." I looked around the room confused. "Releases what?" The voice spoke again, softer this time. "Memories," it said. "All of them. His and yours. Everything he captured. Everything he feared to lose." "Where?" I asked. "In the heart of the island." I followed the path the voice guided me to. Through long corridors that hummed faintly, down to a staircase that spiraled into the earth. The air grew cooler, filled with a faint scent of iron and rain. At the bottom, there was a door. Circular, metallic, pulsing faintly with light. I inserted the key. It turned smoothly, as though it had been waiting only for my hand. The door opened to a chamber filled with light. Soft, golden light, like the kind that filters through curtains on a gentle morning. In the center stood a column of glass, filled with floating strands of silver, shimmering like memories caught in motion. And within that light, I saw him, not fully, not flesh and bone, but his outline, his warmth, his smile. "Grandma," he whispered. My breath caught. "Oliver, is it really you?" "It's what's left of me," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought if I could keep you here, I could keep you safe. But I only trapped us both." I stepped closer, tears streaming freely now. "Oh, my dear boy, love doesn't live in cages. It breathes only when you let it go." He smiled faintly, fading in and out like sunlight on the sea. "Then let me go, Grandma. Set us both free." I pressed my hand to the glass. The warmth of it spread through me. Not mechanical, not digital. Real. The warmth of every bedtime story, every hug, every forgiveness I'd ever given him. Then I turned the key once more. The light flared. Not harsh, not violent, but gentle. Like dawn rising after a long night. The room filled with the sound of waves and the echo of laughter. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, the chamber was empty. The machines were still. The hum was gone. I stood there for a long time, hand against my chest, feeling the quiet. It wasn't empty. It was peaceful. I whispered into the stillness, "Goodbye, my Oliver." And for the first time in years, I felt that he heard me. As I walked out of the house, the sun was setting over the sea, painting everything golden soft. The towers had gone dark. The island, once a prison of wires and memories, was just an island again. I sat on the shore until twilight, watching the tide roll in. The waves looked almost like they were smiling. If you're still here, my dears, if you've walked through every word with me, thank you. Maybe you can understand now. Sometimes love's greatest act is knowing when to let go. So if this old woman's voice still reaches you, give it a little love, a like, a share, maybe a comment to tell me where you're listening from. I'll read every one of them, because your hearts keep my story alive. And when the sea hums again tonight, I'll know it's not a machine this time. It's just him, saying goodbye one last time. I came home to England on a grey morning that smelled of rain and lilac, the kind of morning where the clouds hang low, as though the world itself is pausing for breath. My old house stood exactly as I'd left it. Ivy climbing the brick, roses bending toward the gate, a sparrow nesting in the gutter. Only I had changed. Inside, the clock ticked the same patient rhythm it always had. But time felt different now, softer, slower. The kettle hissed, the fire crackled, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel watched by silence. I sat by the window and whispered, "It's over, my dear boy. Rest now." And yet, the world, in its strange mercy, wasn't finished teaching me. It began 1 week later, a soft knock at my door on a Sunday afternoon. When I opened it, a young girl stood there, drenched from the rain, holding a small brown parcel. She couldn't have been more than 11, hair the color of wheat, eyes full of wonder. "Are you Mrs. Ruth Bennett?" she asked. I smiled. I was once. Now I'm mostly just Grandma Ruth to the birds. "And you are?" "I'm Clara," she said shyly. "My mum works at the university. She said you used to tell stories on the radio a long time ago. They helped me sleep when I was little." I blinked in surprise. "Oh heavens, that was decades ago. You listened to those?" She nodded and held out the parcel. "They're teaching us about empathy and storytelling in class. The professor said your voice recordings are used in something called the Echo Project. He said your grandson helped make it." My heart paused mid-beat. "He told you that?" She shook her head. "It's written on the box. He wrote your name and his together." I took the parcel inside, hands trembling. When I opened it, I found a simple object, an old MP3 player, silver and worn, the kind Oliver once carried everywhere. Inside it were 3 files, each labeled with one word: hope, memory, home. Clara looked up at me, curious. "Can we listen?" I nodded. We sat by the fire, 2 generations of strangers, bound by the same heartbeat, and I pressed play, a soft crackle. Then, my voice. "Once upon a time, there was a boy who wanted to save every story in the world. But he forgot that the most beautiful ones aren't stored, they're shared." Clara smiled. "That sounds like something you'd say." I smiled too, but my throat tightened. I hadn't recorded those words. Not like that. The second file played next. Oliver's voice. Gentle, tired, but full of warmth. "Grandma taught me that love isn't memory, it's motion. Every act of kindness keeps it alive." Clara's eyes glistened. "He sounds nice." "Yes," I whispered. He was. The third file was shorter. Just a simple message. "If anyone hears this, tell her I finished the story." We sat there quietly for a long while. The firelight danced across Clara's face, and I realized something. Love really doesn't die in the machines or in the storms. It hides inside people, waiting to be found again. "Would you like some tea, Clara?" I asked finally. She nodded eagerly, and as I poured the steaming cups, she looked around my old kitchen. "It feels safe here," she said softly. That night, after she left, I replayed the recordings again, not to hear the voices, but to feel them. They reminded me of something I'd forgotten. The world is still full of gentle souls, carrying pieces of each other forward without even knowing. Over the next few weeks, Clara began visiting every Sunday. Sometimes she brought muffins, sometimes just stories from her school. She'd sit by my side, wide-eyed, as I told her about the sea and the island, about mistakes and forgiveness. And every time she left, the house seemed a little less empty. One evening, she said something that nearly broke me. "Grandma Ruth," she whispered, "Mum says every story has a message. What's yours?" I thought about it for a long time. Then I smiled and said, "That love, my dear, isn't about keeping people close. It's about sending them out into the world and trusting they'll carry a bit of your heart with them." She nodded solemnly. "Then you gave your heart to Oliver." I laughed softly. and he gave it back in his own strange way. As I watched her walk home through the fading light, I realized something else. I had been so afraid of losing everything that I forgot what it meant to live again. But here was this child, reminding me that love always returns, though never in the way you expect. That night before bed, I took the little MP3 player and placed it on the windowsill. The wind outside carried the sound of waves, and for a moment I thought I heard his laugh. Faint, distant, like an echo turned soft with time. "Good night, my boy," I whispered. "You've finally come home," and I slept peacefully for the first time in years. If you've listened this far, my darlings, you're part of my story now. Give this old woman a little love, a like, a share, or a comment to tell me where you're watching from. Because when your stories reach me, I never feel alone, and maybe that's what Oliver meant by finishing the story. Maybe we only end once. No one remembers us anymore. So thank you for remembering. The weeks that followed felt like sunlight after a long winter. I woke each morning to the sound of birds at my window. Not silence, not fear, but a kind of music that reminded me the world still moved. Even when I couldn't, Clara's visits became the heartbeat of my days. She'd arrive after school, sometimes skipping up the path, sometimes dragging her feet when life felt too heavy. Children always carry more than they say. I saw it in her eyes, the weight of trying to grow up while the world rushed past her. One afternoon, she appeared at my door with her mother, Mrs. Lang, a lovely woman, kind smile, hands that looked like they'd known both work and tenderness. She told me the school was hosting a Living Stories project, where children would record the life experiences of older generations. "Clara thought you might help," she said. Clara tugged my sleeve shyly. "Mum said you tell stories better than the people on TV." I chuckled. "That's because I lived before the world learned to talk too fast." Mrs. Lang smiled. "The children will use audio and old radios for the final presentation. We heard you once worked with voice archives." The words hit me softly. Voice archives. That's what Oliver used to call his little experiments before they turned into his grand ideas. The irony didn't hurt this time. It hummed gently, like a forgotten melody. "I'd be honored," I said. So it began. Every Saturday, Clara and a handful of her classmates would gather in my sitting room. They'd set up a tiny recorder, nothing fancy, just a small black microphone on the table. And I'd tell them stories, not the polished ones from radio days, but real ones, about love that survived wars, letters lost in floods, friendships mended by time. Sometimes I caught myself glancing at the MP3 player on my shelf, the one with Oliver's files. I never played it during those sessions, but somehow I felt his presence there, like he was listening too. After one recording, a quiet boy named Theo raised his hand. "Miss Ruth, why do you tell sad stories if they make people cry?" I smiled. "Because, my dear, tears are proof that you felt something, and feeling is how we stay alive." He nodded thoughtfully. "Then I want to make people feel things too." I looked at him, and for a split second, I saw Oliver. That same spark of wanting to change the world through something invisible yet powerful. Over the next month, the children began weaving their stories together. They mixed my voice with their own. Laughter, questions, even the sound of the rain outside my window. It was imperfect, but it was beautiful. Then one evening, Clara showed me their final title, Echoes of Kindness. I couldn't help but laugh softly. "You've been listening to Oliver, haven't you?" She grinned. "I think he's been listening to us." When presentation day arrived, they invited me to the school hall. Rows of chairs, a small projector, and a crowd of parents. I sat in the front row, hands folded in my lap, heart trembling like an old piano string. The lights dimmed. The first sound that played was my voice. Not from that day, but from the old recordings, Oliver's file. Once upon a time, love built a bridge so strong that even silence couldn't break it. Then came the children's voices, layered gently over mine, reciting their stories, tales of kindness to strangers, memories of grandparents, the simple joy of sharing time. The hall filled with warmth, not applause, just quiet tears and smiles. When it ended, the headmaster said softly, "To Mrs. Bennet, for reminding us that stories are the heartbeat of memory. I didn't stand. I couldn't. I just sat there and let the tears fall freely. They weren't heavy like before. They were light, like rain that finally cleanses rather than floods." Later, Clara ran up and hugged me tight. "We won first prize," she exclaimed. I smiled. "You won something far greater, my dear. You made people remember." That night when I returned home, the house didn't feel like a museum anymore. It felt alive again. The laughter of the children still echoed in the walls. I made myself a cup of tea, sat by the window and whispered, "You see, my boy, you didn't fail. You only planted the seed." And for the first time since losing him, I didn't feel haunted. I felt accompanied. As I turned off the lights, I glanced at the MP3 player. Its little screen flickered faintly, as if acknowledging me. A glitch, perhaps. Or maybe something else. I didn't press play this time. I didn't need to. I knew the story was still unfolding, just not where I could hear it. Before I drifted to sleep, I spoke softly into the darkness. To those listening, thank you. You've carried my voice, my heart, my memories, farther than I ever could. If you felt something tonight, even a whisper of warmth, then don't forget to share it. Leave a little light behind for someone else. And maybe, my darlings, while you're here, tell me where you're listening from in the comments, so that this circle of stories keeps growing. From my little English home to wherever you are in the world, because as long as our voices keep meeting, none of us are ever truly alone. Spring arrived quietly in the village that year. The magnolia tree outside my kitchen window blossomed early, and every morning I'd stand there with my cup of tea, listening to bees hum like a soft hymn. It had been months since the children's project, months since I'd felt that sharp ache of loneliness. Life had become steady again, peaceful. Then, one afternoon, the postman brought a parcel. Brown paper, string tied neatly, no return address, only my name written in Oliver's handwriting. My knees almost gave way. I carried it to the table and sat for a long time before opening it. Inside was a small wooden box, the kind he used to make in his workshop, and a folded letter smelling faintly of sea salt. The first line stopped my breath. "If you're reading this, Grandma, it means the island did what I hoped it would." I read slowly, each word pressing against my heart. "I know you think I was trying to cheat death, but that wasn't it. I wanted to preserve love, the kind you taught me, in a way science could understand. The experiment was never about me living forever. It was about seeing whether kindness could leave a measurable imprint. I called it the Resonance Project." He went on to describe how he'd built hidden receivers across the island, not to store consciousness, but to record emotional frequencies during moments of care, forgiveness, even grief. When you arrived that day, the system reached completion. Your words, your forgiveness, became the final signal. You gave the data meaning. Without you, it would have been just static. I wiped my eyes, unable to see the ink clearly. The rest of the letter was shorter, written in his quick, messy script. "I didn't trap you, Grandma. I called you home because only you could finish what I started. The island isn't a prison. It's a bridge. Every time someone tells a story with love, it resonates. And somewhere, somehow, I'll hear it." At the bottom of the box lay a small seashell pendant with a tiny chip inside. Half silver, half coral pink. My reflection shimmered on its curve. When I pressed it to my ear, it emitted the faintest hum, like the sound of waves trapped in a dream. That evening I walked to the old pier near my house. The tide was rising, the air thick with the scent of salt and lilac. I held the shell against the wind, and for a heartbeat I heard him. Not a clear voice, but a feeling, as if the sea itself whispered thank you. The next morning I invited Clara and her mother for tea. I told them everything, about the island, the project, the letter. Mrs. Lang listened in quiet awe. So it wasn't really a trap, she said softly. No, I answered. It was a test, not of machines, but of faith, whether love could travel farther than we understand. Clara touched the shell reverently. It's like a heart that never stops beating. Her words made me smile. Exactly that. From then on, we made it our ritual. Every Sunday we'd walk to the pier and hold the shell to the wind. Clara would close her eyes and whisper a story. Sometimes about her day, sometimes about the stars. And we'd listen to the echo, pretending the sea was answering back. I began recording those sessions on a small tape deck, labeling each cassette Resonance 1, 2, 3. The voices layered softly over time. Mine, hers, the waves. Together they built something neither science nor grief could define. One night, I decided to upload one of our recordings to a storytelling forum online. I titled it, Echo of Kindness, a message across the sea. I didn't expect much, but within days, messages poured in from people around the world. Some said it helped them forgive. Others said it reminded them to call their parents. Someone even wrote, I think I've been to your island. Perhaps that was only metaphor, but in my heart, I believed it. If you're still listening, my dears, do me a little favor. Hit that like button if this story touched you. Share it so another soul might find a bit of light tonight. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Maybe your voice will travel through this old shell too, because that's what Oliver built. A way for love to echo beyond time. The letter changed everything. Not the past. Not the pain, but the way I carried them. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the last page of a forgotten book. I felt like a bridge. Exactly what Oliver wanted me to be. Weeks turned to months. Spring folded into summer, and though my joints protested, and my knees whispered their complaints, my heart had never felt lighter. Still, the shell, that little humming secret, called to me every night. Somewhere deep inside, I knew the story wasn't quite finished. So one morning, I packed a small bag, a scarf, my teacup, the shell pendant, and a copy of Oliver's letter. I called Clara to tell her I'd be away for a few days. Are you going back? She asked softly. Yes, my dear. But this time, I'm not going to look for ghosts. I'm going to say thank you. The journey to the coast felt different this time. Gentler. The train hummed through the countryside, past golden fields and sleeping sheep. I watched the reflections blur across the glass, and for the first time in years, my reflection smiled back at me without hesitation. When I reached the harbour, the same old fisherman was there, the one who'd taken me to the island before. He looked up from his boat, squinting at me. Back again, Miss Ruth. Thought you'd had your fill of ghosts. I smiled. Maybe I've learned they weren't ghosts after all. He chuckled. You Bennets are a strange lot. We sailed in silence for a long while. The sea stretched endless and blue, shimmering like a living mirror. When the island finally came into view, I gasped. It looked untouched, wild and beautiful, but somehow softer, as if the years had forgiven it too. The trees leaned toward the shore. The sand glittered in the sunlight. There was no hum, no strange machinery, just wind and waves. I stepped onto the beach and felt the sand beneath my shoes. Warm and familiar. The air smelled of salt and something sweeter. Lilac again, faint but unmistakable. My heart fluttered. The old pathway still wound through the trees, but the metal towers and screens were gone. In their place were wildflowers. Violet, white, gold. Nature had reclaimed what was once human ambition, and yet, As I walked deeper inland, I could feel it, that quiet vibration beneath the earth. The resonance, still alive. I reached the cliff where I'd last stood with Oliver. The sea below roared like a giant heartbeat. I took out the shell pendant and held it to my ear. The hum grew faintly stronger, softer than before, but steady, like the pulse of something eternal. Then I whispered, "I understand now. It was never a trap. It was a way home." The wind answered with a sigh, brushing my hair across my face. I closed my eyes and began to speak. Not to the air, not to machines, but to the world itself. You wanted to capture love in its purest form, my boy. And you did. It wasn't in your machines or your algorithms. It was in every heart your story touched. In Clara, in me, in the strangers who listened. You built a bridge not of steel, but of kindness. For a moment, I thought I heard laughter in the wind. Not haunting, but joyful. I sat on the grass until the sun began to set, watching the sky bleed into gold and crimson. The world felt whole again. Not because it was perfect, but because I had finally learned to let it be imperfect. When I returned to the boat, the fisherman nodded knowingly. "Did you find what you came for?" I smiled. "No, but I found what I needed. Back home." I placed the shell on my mantelpiece beside Oliver's photograph. From that day on, whenever the wind blew through my window, the shell would hum softly. Not every night, but often enough to remind me that love, once released, never really leaves. As the seasons passed, I grew older, gentler. My knees weakened, my hands trembled, but my spirit, oh my spirit, it sang. Clara grew taller. Her laughter filled my kitchen, and sometimes, when she'd talk about her dreams, I'd catch echoes of Oliver in her words. One evening, as the rain whispered against the window, I sat in my armchair and turned on the recorder again. My voice cracked, but I spoke anyway. For you, for anyone still listening, my dear ones, if you've followed my story this far, you've become part of something greater. Maybe you've lost someone too. Maybe you've carried silence for too long. But remember, love doesn't end where life does. It lingers, reshapes, whispers through every act of kindness you give. I paused, smiling at the blinking red light on the recorder. So before you go, promise me this: when you finish this video, take a breath, look around and do one small kind thing for someone. Then come back and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Maybe, just maybe, your kindness will be the next echo that keeps Oliver's bridge alive. I leaned back, letting the warmth of the fire wrap around me. The hum of the shell joined the crackle of the logs. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the storyteller or the survivor. I felt like a note in a song that never ends. And perhaps, somewhere across the sea, another voice, soft and familiar, whispered back, "Good night, Grandma." It's strange how peace arrives. Not with fanfare, not with the sound of angels, but with the quiet hum of ordinary mornings. I wake to the sound of the kettle, the birds tapping the window, and the sea whispering somewhere far away. Though I live miles from the shore, it's been a year since my last visit to the island, and sometimes I still dream of it. Not as a place of fear, but of light. In my dreams, Oliver stands by the edge of the water, smiling, sunlight caught in his hair, saying nothing, just being. My days have become gentle rituals. Tea at dawn, reading by the window, letters from people I'll never meet, strangers who found our recordings online. Some write from India, some from Canada, others from little towns I've never heard of. They tell me my voice helped them forgive or helped them say goodbye. Sometimes I sit with those letters spread around me on the table, and I whisper to the empty air, "See, Oliver, your bridge reached the world." Clara visits every week, now taller, older, with a voice beginning to carry the same warmth mine once did. She still calls me Grandma Ruth, though I've told her a dozen times she doesn't need to. She insists, "You're everyone's grandma now," she said once. And I couldn't argue with that. We spend evenings recording new stories together. Not grand ones, small ones. A neighbor's kindness, a cat that found its way home, a child learning to write their name. It's the tiny things that make the world gentle again. But I know my time is slowing. I can feel it in my bones. The way the world seems to move a little faster, and my feet a little slower. There's no fear in it anymore though, just acceptance. One night, as the house slept and the fire dimmed low, I found myself awake, staring at the old recorder. It blinked quietly, waiting, as if it knew there was one last story I needed to tell. I pressed the red button, and the tape began to spin. My dearest listeners, I began softly. If you've come this far, you've carried my story longer than I ever expected anyone would. Maybe you're listening on a phone, or in your car, or somewhere far away from this old house in England. Maybe you're watching from a country I'll never see. But if you can hear my voice, know this. You are part of Oliver's Bridge now. I paused, letting the silence breathe between words. You see, I used to think life was about holding on. To people, to memories, to time. But it isn't. It's about releasing what we love so it can live in others. Every story you share, every kindness you give, every tear you allow to fall without shame, those are echoes of love, traveling farther than we ever will. The recorder crackled softly, as if agreeing. I thought my private island holiday was a trap once, I said, smiling faintly. But now I understand. It was a test of the heart, a reminder that sometimes what looks like loss is simply love in disguise. I took a deep breath. So if you've been hurt, my darling, if you're listening through pain tonight, don't turn away from it. Sit with it. Let it teach you tenderness. Because pain is just love's shadow, waiting to be understood. I felt my throat tremble, my eyes burn. I let them. And when I'm gone, because one day I will be, I want you to promise me something. Keep talking. Keep telling your stories. Keep this bridge alive. You can start by liking this video, by sharing it, by commenting where you're watching from, but most of all, by telling someone you love them before the night ends. That's how we keep the light moving. The fire cracked, filling the quiet with warmth. I smiled. Oliver once said that stories are our immortality. I believe he was right, because look at us now. Two voices, crossing oceans, decades apart, still finding each other through sound. I reached for the shell pendant hanging beside the recorder and held it close. The hum was softer now, slower, like a heartbeat at peace. "Good night, my boy," I whispered. "You can rest now. Your bridge is safe," and for a fleeting second, I felt something. A gentle pulse of warmth through the pendant, as if someone far away had just whispered, "I love you too." I turned off the recorder and placed it next to Oliver's photograph. My hands shook, but my heart was steady. That night, I slept without dreams. Just a quiet contentment, the kind that feels like being wrapped in an old familiar blanket. The next morning, the sun streamed through the curtains, painting my room gold. I heard Clara's voice in the garden calling out to me. "Grandma Ruth, we've got a surprise for you," I smiled. "I'll be right there, my darling," I said, my voice trembling with joy. But before I rose, I looked at the recorder one last time. The little red light blinked twice, as if saying goodbye. The garden smelled of lavender and morning dew. Clara stood in the sunlight, waving her hands, excitement lighting her face. "Grandma Ruth, hurry!" She laughed, her voice carrying the same melody her mother once had. Soft, musical, alive. I stepped out slowly, feeling the breeze against my cheeks, my old shawl wrapped around me. "What's all this commotion, I asked, pretending to sound annoyed, though my heart was already smiling. Clara pointed to the little table in the middle of the garden. On it sat a new recorder, sleek and shining, beside a small tablet. playing one of my oldest stories. My voice echoed faintly from it, soft and trembling. You see, my darlings, love doesn't die. It simply changes its form. Clara's eyes shimmered. They're listening, Grandma. Everywhere. Your stories. They've reached 1 million people. For a moment, the world went still. 1 million. I let the number sink into me. Not as fame, but as proof that kindness travels, that memories matter. Oliver would have liked that, I whispered. Clara grinned. We made a little channel for you. The Bridge of Ruth. People are sending their stories too, from different countries. They talk about forgiveness, hope, about you. I chuckled softly, though tears blurred my sight. Oh, my sweet girl, I thought I was too old to build anything new. You built hearts, Grandma, she said. That's bigger than anything. The words hit something deep in me. I reached out, touching her cheek. Her skin warm, alive, full of youth. Promise me you'll keep going, I said. Tell their stories too. The world forgets easily, but we mustn't let it, she nodded, biting her lip to keep from crying. Later that evening, after she left, I sat by the window. The sky had turned a soft violet, the kind that only England seems to know. Misty, melancholic, and endless. The sea wind whispered again, though it was miles away. I closed my eyes, and for a heartbeat, I could almost hear Oliver's laughter, the island waves, the echo of our last walk together. Are you proud of me, love? I whispered to the fading light. Did I carry the story well? Somewhere deep in the quiet, a faint hum answered, the same hum that once came from the pendant. I smiled through my tears. I know, I said softly. I know. The next day, I wrote one final letter to Clara. I left it on the desk, beside the old recorder and the shell pendant. The letter read, My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, it means my voice has gone silent at last. But don't be sad, my love. I've simply crossed the bridge I built. You are the keeper of our stories now. Tell them with kindness. Speak softly, even when the world is loud. And whenever you record a new story, start by asking your listeners to tell you where they're watching from. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because it reminds us we're never truly alone. Love always finds its way home. Grandma Ruth. And that was all. That night, I lit a single candle and sat by the window till dawn. My hands rested over the pendant one last time. There was no fear, no regret, only the warmth of every soul that had ever listened. When morning came, the light filled the room like a blessing. My tea sat beside me, untouched, but still warm. Clara found me there, smiling, peaceful, as if I'd just fallen asleep in the middle of a story. Months later, Clara stood in the same garden, her voice trembling as she spoke into the recorder. Hello, everyone. This is Clara, Ruth's granddaughter. I wanted to thank you all for being part of her journey. Grandma used to say, love is a story that never ends. So today, I'm continuing hers. She held up the pendant, the same one that had hummed with mysterious warmth all those years. She always asked you to comment where you're watching from. Let's do that again, for her. Tell us your country, your city, your corner of the world, because every voice counts. The video went live, and within hours, the comments began to flood in. Listening from Japan. She helped me forgive my father. From South Africa. Her voice healed something inside me. From Canada. I never met her, but I'll miss her like family. From Pakistan. May Grandma Ruth's bridge never fall. Thousands of hearts. Across borders, languages, and lifetimes. All bound by one woman's voice, and a story that began on a quiet private island, long ago, somewhere beyond the noise of the internet. Beyond time and memory, I like to think Ruth smiled. Perhaps she and Oliver finally walked side by side again, hand in hand, as the tide whispered softly against their feet, and maybe, just maybe, when the world is very still, and the night is kind. You can still hear her voice, carried on the wind. Remember me, my darlings, not for how I left, but for how I loved. Now it's your turn. If Grandma Ruth's story touched your heart, tell us in the comments. Where are you watching from? Write your country or city below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Not just for her, but for every voice that deserves to be heard.